God didn't put us here for that pat on the back. He created us so he could be here himself, so that he could exist in the lives of those he created in his image. I want to tell you about the most insane sermon I have ever heard in my life, and it came from a sitcom. Those words weren't spoken in some giant cathedral. They came from a tired priest in a dirty bathrobe on a TV show called MASH. And I'm not kidding. It might be one of the most powerful, God-filled moments in television history. This isn't just a scene. It's literally a sermon. You won't believe what it has to say to you. You have to hear what this priest, Father Mulcahy, actually said. He gets up in front of the entire camp, including the super important cardinal he wanted to impress, and he starts with this. Good morning. Well, here we are. It's Sunday again. I'm sure you've all come expecting to hear a sermon. Well, I have to admit, I'm not as prepared as I'd like to be. I'm not even dressed as I'd like to be. I was working on my sermon, but I was called away, and to be honest, I never got back to it. So if you'll just bear with me, I'd like to share with you the reason why. He then tells a story about two guys. One guy was obsessed with looking good and being important, and the other was a dying soldier who was literally giving his own blood to try to save a friend. And when the first man saw the dignity and the selflessness of the second man, he realized how petty and selfish he literally breaks down here. His voice cracks. I had been. It made me see something more clearly than I've ever seen it before. And then he drops this bombshell of truth that he learned. God didn't put us here for that pat on the back. He created us so he could be here himself, so that he could exist in the lives of those he created in his image. No notes, no script. Just a man being completely broken and honest. He wasn't giving a performance. He was making a public confession. And through that weakness, God delivered one of the most legendary messages ever. But that's not even the craziest part. To understand why this is so insane, you need to know what happened literally hours before. Father Mulcahy was completely consumed by his own ego. He was furious that all the camp chaos was ruining his shot at giving the perfect sermon for the cardinal. Meanwhile, a young soldier named Gary Sturgis was quietly offering his blood for a wounded friend. A simple act of love, but that one act led to a crazy discovery. The soldier was dying of leukemia. The guy trying to preach a sermon was completely humbled by a guy who was living one. It's wild. Ashamed, Mulcahy threw his notes in the trash. He went to the dying soldier's bed, and he just sat with him all night. He didn't preach at him. He just listened. And in the silence, God gave him the only sermon that mattered. Okay, let's break down why this fake sermon feels more real than the most real life ones. It starts with 100% vulnerability. I'm not prepared. It continues with a public confession. I was being selfish. And it ends with a massive truth bomb. God is here in us, through us. This isn't some boring textbook theology. This is the gospel, alive. The Apostle Paul literally writes in the Bible, offer your bodies as a living sacrifice. This is your true and proper worship. That is exactly what the soldier did with his life. And by seeing it, that's what Father Mulcahy finally understood. This moment wasn't just good TV. For millions of people, this was church. Father Mulcahy wasn't like other priests on TV. He wasn't some perfect saint who never did anything wrong. He was human. He had doubts. He struggled, and he was brutally honest about how flawed he was. But in his biggest moment of failure, he showed us all what real spiritual leadership is. It's not about being perfect. It's not about preaching louder than everyone else. It's about being there for people and pointing to how good they are. God used his weakness, his failure, and his honesty to speak a sermon that millions of people would never forget. So, can a TV show really bring you closer to God? 100% yes. Because God doesn't just show up in perfect, shiny cathedrals. He shows up with broken people in bloody hospital tents, in failed sermons, and quiet confessions. You don't have to impress him. You don't need perfect words or a perfect life. You just need to be real, because that's where his grace is. The priest found God in the middle of his own failure, and because of him, so did we. If this hits you in the heart, don't let that feeling go away. Talk to God right now, wherever you are. And if you want to keep exploring more insane stories about faith and culture, subscribe right now. There is so much amazing stuff in the most unexpected places, and you don't want to miss the next one. I'm Erin Patrick, and this has been Bite Sized Sermons.